Time for a word from our sponsors, JJ. If you need some serious security, who do you go to?
Personally, I would go when you're looking for real protection, not just a badge on a wall. Make the call to the Campbell Security Group, based right there in St. Louis. They're veteran-owned and powered by former law enforcement and military professionals, from executive protection to private air security. They got your back. Get a peace of mind when it matters most. Visit CampbellSecurityGroup.com or call 314-499-1121. Campbell Security Group, because safeguarding your world requires more than watchful eyes. It demands proven action.
All right, welcome back to the Brighter Side of Blue. Live, or not live, recorded in the basement of Columbo's studio, where the stories are told, the sacrifices are remembered, and the legends are honored. I'm Tommy.
I'm JJ.
Producer Jen.
Very good, very good. No Danny tonight. He's got a previous engagement. But we got, who do we have on tonight, JJ? What we got?
I don't even remember. No.
Okay.
2 attorneys that were police officers, Mike Nolan and Brian Millikan. I got him right. I know Brian Millikan. First time I met Mike Nolan, though.
Brian Millikan?
You got it right.
I know that, but I was worried about Mike, but I remember him. Move on.
Thank God, dude. I didn't mean to stump you.
I didn't know.
We only talked to him.
Get questions
we just got done talking to him about 10 minutes ago.
Well, I don't even get this many questions that early.
It was great interview with both of them. You know, started out as coppers, became lawyers, and Mike works for Husch Blackwell now, and Brian has defended the police in many, many cases, and we really get into that, and it's enlightening for those that don't know the process of what happens when policemen get in trouble and some of the things that go down. That's pretty enlightening, and it was a good interview. I liked it.
That was great. And Brian, he's come to the rescue of my officers and over the years.
I would say rescue.
That's pretty bad.
That's kind of.
What word? I mean, use aid?
I would say that he helped them. That he helped their cause a little bit.
He covered their cases.
Right. I guess.
They're all good. They're all good, though.
Exactly.
So he has easy work to do, but still, it's important for having him to show up.
Yep. And then we're going to hear some stories tonight. We've opened up a new travel agency. The company has in honor of Danny. We'll hear about that. We've got the Bahamas. There was a little murder in the Bahamas. It's a common theme, and I don't understand why people keep doing it. We've got John's got a little story about the Egan Rats. JJ's got a story about why back in the day Chris Rock made a video, and in part of that video it said ways not to get your ass kicked by the police. Yeah. And one of them was don't ride with a mad woman. And you've got a story that
women can be treacherous.
You have a story that
I have a very good one.
Yep.
Hey, and before you start all that stuff, I just want to say something about our military. That this rescue. And I said it earlier in a podcast about we don't need a 9/11 again, but that was one of the most people came together as a country, and people grown into the military because of it, and just proud to be an American at the time, and stood up for our country after 9/11. And we haven't had anything like that, but this is much better. We had 2 pilots go down, and how they got rescued was unreal. And our special forces are just incredible. They're the best in the world. If you're not a young kid and you see this, you got to feel proud of your country. But if I was starting over and seeing this, and I was already too old for 9/11, I was a policeman already. But man, first thing I would want to do is go into military, try to be special forces, because what an adventure and a great career.
They're all good. The special forces are great.
Pilots are incredible.
Yep, incredible.
Yep.
And the guy climbed 7,000 feet.
They even say his wounds yet? I don't even remember.
I haven't heard.
He treated his own wounds and climbed that far. That's just an incredible
story. The CIA got involved. It was a massive operation.
I can't wait to see the movie.
And not one person. I mean, as we know of, not one person lost their lives. And
unreal.
And unbelievable. That's a good way to start.
I like the head fake they did to make the Iranians think they're all going somewhere else, and they sent their people there, but we actually knew that the pilot was in a different.
How many times can you pull that head fake off?
Well, not, and I didn't understand that. I mean, I get it, transparency and everything, but why are we giving up our secrets?
I don't know.
I mean, now the next time you do that, is that a CIA? Well, I guess it keeps them guessing no matter what.
Right.
So
you got a million tricks.
But as last week we went over Danny was all proud of the Artemis 2 trek through to moon, right?
They landed. Did they land today?
Well, they're not. They didn't land. They ain't landing anywhere.
They're going to the. They're falling in
Tomorrow they land.
Oh, in the ocean.
In
the ocean. Yeah.
Okay.
Not on the moon.
But yeah, they don't land anywhere. So that's why we're coming up with the Artemis Travel Agency. And what we're going to do is specialize in you. If you tell us where you want to go, you just tell us where you want to go, and we're going to devise an expedition where you drive around it, and then you just take pictures and
slingshot around.
Right, and you get close to it.
Slingshot around Disney World. Hey kids, there it is.
Right, like if you want to go to the Arch, you head down 44, you get over to Poplar Street Bridge, you hit 3, hit the.
He's messed up, dude.
So we're gonna and then we're gonna hook your car up with cameras. And there'll be all kinds of cameras in there. And you can talk about how great it is. Oh, we're driving around the Arch. Look how great it is. We're taking pictures. So I think what do you think we should charge per expedition?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Just do it for free?
No. We can get $50.
$2 in
charging
gas.
$50.
Yeah.
I think we can make some money. I mean, that's what they're doing, right? They're just traveling around and taking pictures.
Right.
There's all kinds of people.
There it is. We got close.
Right. That's the moon. And it's a historic. And the other thing that I don't understand is why it's historic. It's a historic trip to go around the moon.
You're lucky Danny's not here. You'd be mad right now.
No, he's not going to be here next week either. So this is going to be a couple of weeks before he gets to respond. Fuck him. So they're calling this a historic journey, right? Well, they're traveling around the moon. They claim they've already been there. What's so historic? That's like
They never went to the backside. They always went straight to the.
Oh, so you're defending this shit?
Well, yeah.
Hey, they saw the backside of the moon. Only 4 people have.
Pink Floyd did. He sang about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's because he was high.
That could have been.
He might have saw it in his dreams.
You know, Pink Floyd's not a person, dude. It's a band.
They were high.
No, you actually thought. You thought.
It's been a long time since I listened to that rock.
Wasn't Pink Floyd the barber on the Andy
I
Griffith?
couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you the lead singer. I can tell you that.
No, because you thought his name was Pink Floyd.
It isn't
until today. That's classic.
I don't think I ever thought about it till just now. But
so why is it that we should never ever ride with a mad woman, JJ?
oh shit, I was in the 8th district. I only had like 2 years on, but I was tearing it up. But
Of course.
I was a day watch and it was kind of slow, and I'm driving around. And I don't know if you guys remember Kevin Mueller. Do you guys remember Kevin Mueller? He was a young policeman. He was a proactive guy. He had like 3 years on. He came out before me, and they made him. Larry Lee liked to make guys. If the sergeant showed, he made him acting sergeant. He's got 3 years on. He's making him acting sergeant. So I get a call for a disturbance. It's daytime, and the thing is, the woman wants her boyfriend removed from her house. So it's like in the 4800 block of Labadie. Go there. He meets me there because I have no assist, so he's going to meet me there. So we go up there, knock on the door, and open the door. And this is the 8th district. It's the smallest district. There's not one place to eat, and it's one of the most rundown areas in the city. And there's nothing really nice. And all the houses you ever go in, we talked about kind of earlier, they're just they're nasty, most of them. This was a nicer house. There's a nice wooden staircase that went up the front door. She was probably in her early 30s, classy, dressed nice. It was like probably 10 o'clock in the morning, like she was getting ready to go to work or whatever. And she just says, "Hey, my boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, I just want him out of the house. Just go get him." And I said, "All right." So we walk up there, and she goes, "He's probably in the bathroom. He's in the shower, getting out. He should be getting out of the shower." So we go up there, we knock on the bathroom door, open up. He's still in a towel, and he's like, looked like a normal guy in his like mid-30s, totally just normal looking dude. Looked like he definitely wasn't a street guy or not a guy throwing on the street corner selling dope. So he goes, "Hey, can you just get dressed and I'll leave?" I'm like, "All right." So we walk back down the steps waiting for him. He comes down in a long overcoat, dressed up nice. And we think this is the easiest case we've ever had. So we're standing there, and as he walks out, Kevin goes to the door. He's going to open the door for him, and I'm going to follow behind him as he's leaving. There's nothing to it. And the gal says,
"You ain't shit, your dog ain't shit, you got a cute nephew, but his uncle a bitch. Whoop, whoop, somebody call the whole police, and your granny ain't shit, makes you rest in peace, cause you done pissed off a petty bitch. Well, I hope you fucking ready, bitch. Get ready, bitch."
you might want to check his pockets. He's probably got a bunch of dope in it.
Oh, God.
And we both stop, and Mueller looks at me and and he pats him on the outside of his coat, and there was a bag of heroin buttons or pills, whatever. It was this big. And he grabs his big bag, and the guy looks at us like, fuck. And then I put handcuffs on him and take him to jail. And it's like, holy shit, dude.
Yep.
He just ruined this guy's life. No one even knew about him. But after that, I found out he was the one that was supplying all that area, these young kids selling dope in the corner. He was the man. And so about a week later, he got out of jail. About 2 weeks later, I'm driving down St. Louis Avenue, and I'm making the story longer, but she was a mad woman. So I see this guy stand in the corner with all these old heads. There's a little gas station. All these old heads would hang out. And he sees me, and I would never have stopped him in a million years, but I knew who he was because I already got him with all the heroin. So I jump out of the car. He takes off running. I catch him with another thing of heroin, huge bag of heroin. So I lock him up again, second time. So I don't know how he keeps going out. He got out on bond or whatever. I'm sure he had some money. Months go by. I don't see or hear about him or nothing. He ends up in the trunk of a car in the county and has been there for a while. He got killed, and the major case squad came out. And so, remember Harmon's son, what's the lieutenant?
Kevin?
No, Steve.
Steve Harmon calls me. I'm working night shift, or 3 to 11. I get a call to meet him. He's like, hey, I got a list of guys who we want to talk to. So I said, I know them all. So we ended up going to the house, getting one. He goes, I'm going to see if I can get you on. So I got to go on the major case squad because of this.
Because of the gal?
Yeah. So I went for like 3 days, and we just drove around the 8th district, and I just grabbed all the guys that they wanted to talk to. But
What about the gal? Did you go back and talk to her?
never saw her again. And I hated to bring this up. This was 30-something years ago, 30 years ago. So, but I'm guessing that he had a lot of money lost, and somebody was pissed off at him, and he ended up in the trunk of a car. But
Because of you.
No, because of her.
I don't know. We'll see.
Don't blame that on me.
We'll see, dude.
You're the one that took all his dope.
But that was one angry, and she was cool as a cucumber on it too. And it just says, you might want to check his pocket. He's probably got a little dope in him. And we're like, what? There's no way. And he did. He looked at her like, are you kidding me? I don't know what he did to her. But
Chris Rock was right on the money.
Yeah, he pissed her off.
Don't be messing with a mad woman.
You should put it in his underwear or something.
He should have. But he thought he was cool, cucumber dude. He thought he was just going to walk out of there and it's all good. And we weren't going to mess with him until she had. He would have. He was sky free.
Was it a fur coat?
No, it was just a long duster, whatever you call it.
Duster.
You know what I mean? Long. It was nice. It wasn't leather. Maybe, I don't remember. It was just a long coat. I remember that.
I think it would look. The image of it would look better. As
Okay,
if
it
you-
was
If you
leather.
put him in a fur coat and like a hat.
It was a fur coat.
Like
He
Joe
had-
Frazier.
Yeah. Might have been.
Moving Marvin Barnes.
Yeah, he wasn't even a real big guy. He was just kind of, you could tell he was slick.
Now, Johnny, last week you told us about the Bottoms gang.
Yeah.
Now they were in a beef with the Egan's Rats, but now you got some more information on the Egan's Rats.
Well, I want to give the Egan's Rats equal time.
Okay.
And before I start, I want to say congratulations to Chief Gregory out in the county. He just announced his retirement.
That's a good call. Yep.
Yeah,
He's a great guy. Great guy.
Everything I hear about him is really good. And
He's the grandfather of Kenyon Williams, who's the
Rams.
running back for the Rams.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, exactly. So last week we talked about the Bottoms gang. They were a downtown gang back right around the turn of the century to around 1900. They were Irish American, as are the Egan's Rats, but they were they had 50, 60 people. Egan's Rats at their peak was 300 to 400 members.
Uh-oh.
And
There's a math problem occurring.
But they were like mortal enemies. Those two gangs. The Rats were up in the Kerry Patch neighborhood. Was up at 14th and O'Fallon, that area. So they were little northwest of where the Bottoms gang was. But they were founded by Thomas Snake Kinney
Snake.
and Tom Egan, who's named after it. But they started out as pickpockets, burglars, robbers. They like to break into train cars and steal stuff. But just like the Bottoms gang, they became strongmen for the Democratic Party. Because apparently back then, if there was a close election, they'd send these thugs out and strong-arm people into voting the way.
So nothing's changed over the years.
Yeah, exactly. All these years later, it's still the same. And just like because Frank Hussey, who was in charge of the Bottoms gang, Snake Kinney got into politics and actually became a Missouri state senator. So both gangs, one of their leaders was an actual politician in Jeff City with a big job. But I guess that's, like I said, that's how it worked back then. I'm not saying that works that way now, especially if the governor's listening.
Let's not say that.
But so anyway, when Kinney got in politics, Egan just kept getting more and more members for this gang, and they kept getting more and more aggressive and doing bigger and bigger crimes. And then he started, people started talking about how prohibition was going to come in. So he decided to get into bootlegging before the prohibition actually started. So he thought he could make a lot of money long term just in the whole bootlegging industry. But Snake Kinney died of tuberculosis in 1912, but Egan passed away right before Prohibition started, so he never really got to see the fruits of his efforts. But his brother Willie became the head of the gang, and Willie really was like concentrating on the bootlegging part too. But the gang members were getting restless because they're used to be going out there and doing street robberies and robbing banks and doing things. And they, a lot of them revolted against them. Some of them went to other gangs. But anyway, Egan was shot and killed by another gang. And the gang started going nuts doing bank robberies. Once Willie was out of the way, they did, I think, let me see what it said here. Oh, no, they did $4.5 million in bank robberies between 1919 and 1924. But their biggest heist was they commandeered an armored truck downtown and got $2.4 million out of that heist. So
Damn.
they were rolling, and the other good thing about the Bottoms gang.
It's a good thing.
No, let me start over. You're gonna have to cut this out. What the Rats didn't do is they did not beef with the St. Louis Police Department. Obviously, they had to deal with them, when they got locked up and that. But the Bottoms gang went out of their way to mess with the police because they hated them because of some interactions they had. The Rats were like, hey, lock us up, whatever, if you catch us, but we're not going to go to war with the police department. But their demise started when one of their people who was in prison reached out to the federal authorities and said, hey, I want to start snitching on Egan's Rats to get out of jail. And this member gave them a robbery they did over in Staunton, Illinois, of another armored truck. And all the brain trusts and the main guys in the Egan's Rats got arrested and convicted, and they did 25 years each.
By one snitch?
One snitch. So
informant.
Yep. So
Is that Rich the Snitch?
Not Rich the Snitch. We'll get to him some other time. But
He was a tremendous snitch.
so anyway, when they all got out, a lot of them went to work for Buster Wortman, but they were older guys now. They didn't really do too much, and most of them just kind of faded off. But one ex-rat was Fred Killer Burke.
Oh, yeah. He went to Kansas City and did all kinds of crazy shit.
And he was allegedly involved in the St. Valentine's Day massacre in Chicago.
Wow.
So he really became a big shot after that. But then like I said, after that they disappeared. But they had a good run. 35.
I think the
years.
Cuckoo Gang came in after the Egan's Rats.
That was the Michaels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were Soulard, I believe. The Cuckoo Gang was. Maybe next week, we'll hear about a little bit about the Cuckoo Gang.
Yeah, we got to hear
What do you
about the
think?
Cuckoo Gang. We got to hear about Buster Wortman and some of these other. We'll work our way up through history.
I like it. Speaking of crimes, did you see that one with the Bahamas?
No.
With that couple in the Bahamas?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about that one?
I think he's in trouble.
Right. Yeah. How many times are we going to hear this kind of thing? And every single time you're just like, he did it.
Oh, there's no doubt.
It sounded like the Peterson case. What was that? The one gal? The Peterson. He took it was Thanksgiving, and he took his wife out there, and she ended up dead.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, he's still in prison.
Todd Peterson, I think his name was. But he's getting out on it. He's got a couple of appeals.
Scott Peterson.
Scott Peterson.
Dark hair. And she was cute as she can be, dude. What a cycle. And people,
But this couple was a little older.
Yeah.
And so I guess they sail around. They had their last name is Hookers, and her name is Lynette. I forget his name. But they had a TikTok called the Sailing Hookers, and they would document their little trips around, and they landed in the Bahamas. So apparently, you can't take their boat all the way in because the waters are too shallow. So you have to have a dinghy so they put their boat wherever they put their boat, a mile or two off shore, and then they would take the dinghy into shore. Well, then they would go in and booze or whatever, and then go back, It didn't work out, whatever, it didn't work. And then she ends up with the keys of the dinghy as the rough waters took her out to sea. There's so much shit about that just doesn't sound right.
You know what, though? I mean, are they going to be able to prove that he did it? Scott, would you be able to defend him?
No, that would be Brian to defend him. Scott is a
He's
judge.
right there. I know, but he's
For the right price, he said
no,
he
I
can
mean,
do
I'm
them
just,
all.
no, I mean, I see Scott. No.
I think we booked the sailing hookers for a bass report.
That's
Sailing hookers.
when I was reading the article and I seen they had the thing called the sailing hookers, I immediately went to TikTok and tried to find the sailing hookers, but it got taken down.
Damn it.
I don't think that they're
But then the
have a hard
daughter
way to
chimed
prove.
in.
Oh, she's not helping his case.
Oh, yeah, she said that. Yeah, they have a history of boozing
Domestic
and
abuse,
boozing and brawling.
Right?
And then she said that he was always in control. How does it? And I don't know if I saw the right dinghy, but it just looked like a raft with a motorboat on the back, right? And
I don't like when he talks about dinghies.
but where's you have to have a key? I just think you just pull.
Fuck,
But
I don't
somehow
know.
she got swept away with the key.
Right.
Swept away is the best. Is the best
And
thing.
it took him 4 hours to pedal in.
And to report it at 4 a.m. Dude, you are so guilty. I'm just saying.
What he should have done is jumped over and said they both got knocked off the boat or whatever. And he was almost drowned. He couldn't, whatever. He tried to save her and she drowned.
I would suggest hey, I'm not condoning that anybody do anything to their wives or anything, but stop it with the going out to sea thing.
That never works.
It just doesn't work.
Worked for Natalie Wood. Or not Natalie. Didn't work out for
Wood.
her, but she died. But they got
Robert Wagner.
Robert Wagner got away.
Wagner,
He got
yeah.
away with it.
Yep.
I guarantee he's guilty. Is he dead
I
now?
remember seeing that a while back, but yeah.
Has he passed now?
I'm not,
Dude, that
I don't
was
know.
the heart. What was his
Heart to heart.
Heart to heart.
Yeah.
Christopher Walken was on that trip too.
Yes, that was the weird
Are
part.
you
about
shitting me?
No.
Yeah,
And there's allegedly that they were like him and they might have been a little. All right, doesn't matter.
Right.
well,
They had a little tryst themselves. I heard.
So they were
Allegedly.
little Hollywood freakiness
Yes,
going on.
sound like it.
All right.
And she must have caught him, and he got mad, so he tossed her over.
it's that
That's my
tasteless
theory.
joke. What kind of wood doesn't float?
Natalie.
Natalie.
That's wrong, dude. She was one of the most beautiful women
She was.
ever. You ever heard that?
I vaguely remember the case, but now that's kind of funny.
I guarantee he got away with it. I mean, I definitely got away with it.
Yeah.
Now we had another fast food murder today in the St. Louis area.
Over fries or something?
Onion rings.
Onion rings.
Onion rings. That it kind of brought back. I believe we had one over a Big Buford from Checkers.
Yeah.
I know we had a murder over a Big Buford. Do you guys recall anybody ever recall any other fast food murders? The
No.
Steak and Shake was out of. I didn't even know Steak and Shake had onion rings.
Oh, yeah. I'm not an onion rings guy. I never get them.
Onion rings is a highly risky order. I was eating lunch with Marty the other day, and he ordered onion rings. I said, "That's some risky stuff," and the waitress was all over it. Were those good? Yes. Yes. We were at Seamus McDaniel's, and the waitress gave us a diatribe on how she saved the onion rings
Really?
because they wanted to take them off the menu. But the onion rings have to be crunchy.
Right.
They have to have a certain crunch to them, and you can't get the onion with the whole pull. You know, like sometimes you pull the onion and it just.
Right. And all the fried stuff behind it.
And then when you ask somebody how are your onion rings, what are they supposed to say?
They're good.
Yeah.
They're to die for.
And then you get them. It's still a risky order. But that waitress was very, very big on them. She sold Marty those onion rings like that. She says, I tried to save these bitches. You need to get them.
We've fallen off. We need Danny here to reel us back in, dude. We're
No,
talking about
I'm
onion
just
rings.
saying. This is it. Well, we're going to end this, and then we're going to get to the interview. But before we get to the interview, we need to hear some enlightening words from you
And this
with
is,
your Zen.
And this is by Prime Performance, who I am a member of and been going there for about 3 months. And I feel like I'm 30 years old again.
Is that what you feel like?
I don't know. I don't remember what 30 felt like. Thanks, Pat.
There's a don't look it from
I
the
said
crowd.
I feel like it.
This is the best song ever, by the way.
A good officer listens twice as much as they speak. Understanding prevents harm. That came from Detective Maria Lopez.
Oh,
I don't know who she is. I don't know who she
that's good. They got some. One more time, JJ, and don't fuck it up on your repeat.
I'm guessing she's from New York or somewhere, but a good officer listens twice as much as they speak. Understanding prevents harm.
That's a perfect way.
I got to give Lopez. Actually,
She said that about her husband.
It came from Dave Mueller.
Oh, really? Postal Dave.
Where'd you come up with Maria Lopez then?
Because he sent it and said by Maria Lopez. So I called him. I said, "Who's Maria Lopez?" He goes, "I have no idea."
Oh, so it's like a double.
Yeah,
All right.
he read it on the internet and has like her name. She came up with it, whoever detective she is. And I asked him, I go, "Where did she come from? She New York?" He goes, "I don't know. She was just on it." So
Perfect.
that is what it is.
All right.
Maria, if you're listening, call in and let us know where
Right.
you work.
Communities that support law enforcement are safer places to live. Enjoy our interview with our two tremendous lawyers. Peace.
Thank you.
Time for a quick word from our sponsors. Remember, listeners, you can go buy a Ford from many places, but when you buy it from Schicker Ford of St. Louis, you get a car and a family. The service after the sale is second to none. They've been huge supporters of law enforcement for over 60 years. You get the same treatment if you visit Schicker Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge in Washington, Missouri. So,
When you don't want to bicker about the price on the sticker, head on down to Schicker, where you get the best deal quicker.
Now, where the heck do you bring that car when you first get it?
What I would do is you got to unwind afterwards. And whenever you want to unwind after a shift, buying a car, or just a good night out, you head to Columbo's Cafe and Tavern in Dogtown, St. Louis, where craft brews are on tap. Solid pub grub, a vibe that says real people, real stories near the heart of St. Louis. Bring your squad or just bring your appetite. Located on Manchester in historic Dogtown, Columbo's is where community roots meet good times. Visit columbosstl.com or drop in tonight. Tell them the brighter side of blue sent you. Columbo's, for people who work hard and play harder. All right, welcome to our featured interview. We have with us, to my right is Brian Millikan, and to my left is Mike Nolan. And why we have them on the show is to for all our listeners out there that have kids, grandkids, and they're thinking about what to do, and and we're out here. We always said that we're here to help recruit people. So these two gentlemen started out as policemen. They did a great job for the years they were on the police department, and they decided to take another career path.
They couldn't cut it, so they became
Actually,
attorneys.
I didn't decide that. I can tell you a story, but I actually did not decide that.
I want you to tell that story.
I did not decide
I want
that.
you to tell that story. But they both went on and got their law degrees and are practicing in law now. And Brian represents a lot of police officers now, and we'll get into some of those stories. And Mike was a 3rd District police officer, and he is with Husch Blackwell now, which is a very, very reputable firm in Clayton. And Brian calls him the smart lawyer.
Well, anytime you charge what he charges, you have to be smart.
Right? So you're working for the police department catching those.
The B group gets the lower rate.
I get it. I like it. So let's start with you, Mike. When did you come on the police department?
I came in 94. I was class of 94-3.
Okay. And then what district? 3rd?
Well, I started in the 1st.
Okay.
Did my probationary period with Lou Percelli. Lou had a auto body shop in the 1st, and so I learned a little
Great
bit about
dude.
auto body work.
I
and
bet
then,
you did.
and then asked to be moved up to the 3rd, and really enjoyed it. I had a good experience up there. Met Brian Millikan. Of course, he didn't remember me from the 3rd, but
I thought it just was in the 1st.
I didn't make a good impression on him, apparently. But yeah, I spent all my time really in the 3rd. Met a lot of great people, did a lot of great things. And then one day, Brian said he was going to law school, and I thought, well, shit, if Brian can do it, I can do it. And,
So he was
I don't
inspiration
think that's
to
a
you.
compliment for some reason.
he was. Yeah, so he went to law school first. I think I was a couple of years after that.
All I know is I was pissed off because, when you go to law school, you have to take the LSAT, right? It's kind of like the entrance thing. And I did fine, but it wasn't anything great. And I said, "Hey, Mike, what'd you get?" 170, which is like literally the ceiling of what you could get in an LSAT. And I'm like, what a bastard. I mean, does he have to do everything well like that?
Well, when I don't know how it came up. Oh, Danny was saying that on this day in history, one time he said that this was the day that the SATs were. So I said, I just brought the comment up that I got a 29 on the ACT.
Yeah, that's about as shocking as a 170.
That's why I bring it up, because JJ said, yeah, he wasted a lot of talent. But Brian, what year did you come on the police department?
So I was before Mike. 94-1 was my class. Some notables. Steve Dodge was in that class.
Okay, another lawyer.
Chief in Candyland.
Right.
Yep. And yeah, Steve was there. Joe Marisi was in that class.
Okay.
And we had a good group. I think there was, at that time, you're doing 30 guys in a class. My brother Scott was in the class just before, and so we were actually in the academy together. And even how we got in is I kind of rode his coattails because he was a great softball player.
All right, I know. I played baseball with
They
him.
didn't care anything else about softball.
He was a good
in those
baseball
days,
player, too.
John Burke recruited him, and kind of tagged along, and so we were in the same class, just a couple weeks apart.
Wait a minute, who went to law school first? You or your brother?
So I went first, and Scott, I think maybe a year or two later.
Couldn't let I don't even know who's older.
Well,
He looks older, yeah.
obviously he's older.
Then,
What the hell?
Scott's got all his hair.
He didn't want his little brother to pass him up, so he had to go back. He had to go to law school.
Tell
too.
us how you got into law school. Tell us. And I asked Brian yesterday on the phone. I go, why'd you go to law school? He goes, I don't really have a whole lot of choices.
Yeah, it was not my choice. So I am engaged to be married. Maybe it might have been before, and before I got engaged, actually. And she said, "Okay, so what's next?" And at that point, I was a policeman. I loved it. I loved the job. I loved just being a part of the whole thing, the brotherhood of it all. And so I had no intention at that point. I didn't even have a bachelor's degree at that point. And she said, "Okay, well, what's next?" I said, "Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll get promoted to sergeant someday. That's I'm shooting high. I mean, I could be a lieutenant, but
Right.
maybe
Anybody
I could
could
be a
be a lieutenant.
sergeant. I would. What do you think about that?" And she said, "No, I didn't really have that in mind." And I said, "Well, what do you have in mind?" And I'll just do it. And so that's kind of how the story goes. But I loved history.
Okay,
I like to read. So she's like, "What about law school?" And I never dreamed of it. I was just a Hoosier kid from South City.
Does she still wear the pants in the relationship?
Oh, ask Scott. Ask Scott about that. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And if you're saying your wife does it, then you're fucking lying.
That's true. That is so true.
All right, we'll change subject for a minute, but I want you guys to know that you like Tommy knows and John and everybody, that I do a lot of, when I do an interview, I do a lot of background and look into you and stuff.
yeah.
And so I looked you guys up. I made one phone call to an old platoon mate of yours, Karen Menendez, and asked how you guys were as policemen, because if you didn't pass her code of, thumbs up code or whatever, I was going to really be disappointed in this whole interview, but she gave you both thumbs up. Can't say everything she said, but she said you guys were good, aggressive policemen. I didn't know to get into the aggressive part, so I assume she meant proactive.
Well, if Karen gives us the thumbs up,
That's
That's an honor.
That's an honor. That's an honor. No doubt about it. She talk about a good policeman.
Yeah.
Karen.
Karen and Phil, I think they would go home and try to outdo each other at the next day's arrest.
I don't know. I'd be hard.
They would
If you
both come in with
if
some
you
good
put a
arrests.
vote out to the people that work with them and say who was a better policeman, it'd be a neck and neck. It'd be
Yeah,
close.
I think it would.
Karen was tremendous.
She was.
Right.
Yes, she was.
And then, Mike, talk a little bit about being a policeman. Did that help you be a better lawyer?
Oh,
You think
absolutely.
so?
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about that.
There's never been anything that I faced as a lawyer that would come close to what you face on the street as a police officer. I mean, some attorneys try to intimidate you. It's like, fuck no. Come on, really? What are you going to do? And it gives you, I think, a level of confidence. Well, it's really being able to talk to people and conduct yourself in a way that makes them believe what you're saying, and that's you got to have credibility out on the street. You got to have credibility. Same thing in a courtroom, or same thing with your client. Whatever it is, you got to conduct yourself in a way that they trust you.
Let me ask you this: since you had a background in policeman as a police officers, did you get credibility in being an attorney as being police officers? And then the second part of that question, how many times would you go on the stand? I mean, I know you both did Division 25. Did you have many trials in your? I mean, you guys were there 4 years, and how long were you there?
About four.
So you might have had a few trials.
Couple trials.
So do you only think that boded well for you being an attorney, being on the stand and stuff?
A lot of the people that I work with, I don't think they know many police officers, and so they want to hear about the experience. They want to hear about the stories. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that they see and hear on the news, and they want to get that perspective. And it's nice to be able to explain what it's really like. And it's you can't shoot guns out of people's hands, and it's a tough job. And
I've only done it once.
By mistake.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's they're curious about it, and I didn't really testify much when I was a police officer. I wasn't making the big drug arrests or the big So I think
It's not true. It's not true.
I think I know this story.
He had a big drug. Can you tell the big drug arrest you had? Because I want the world to know that you are a narcotics officer.
Let's go, baby.
Come on.
no. So I was kind of proud of this. It was my first drug arrest. I was working in the 3rd District. It was probably a Sunday morning.
Was his first.
Yeah. And Brian was working the same shift. We were in different cars, but I stopped some guy, patted him down, and a little bag of marijuana fell out of his pocket or something. And so I said, "You're under arrest." I put the cuffs on him. I put him in the back of the car. I'm kind of looking at the little bag of marijuana, kind of proud, I'm cleaning up the city. And Brian happens to come by the stop, and he walks up to the driver's side door, and he's like, "What you got?" I was like, "Drug arrest." He's like, "What do you got?" I showed him the little bag of marijuana. He was like, "Oh, let me see it." Took it, dropped it on the street, stomped on it, squished it with his foot. He was like, "No."
It was his first drug arrest. No, it wasn't.
Almost his first drug.
Almost.
Yeah.
That was like the guy we had on last week.
He did him a solid. You did him a solid.
Oh, if he would have walked into the station with that would have been bad. That would have been bad.
You got ridiculed a little bit.
Yeah.
But Brian, talk a little bit about when you went into the law and why you decided that you wanted to get into defending police officers, which we'll get into, and what that means to you.
Well, first, I just want to kind of respond to JJ's question about how that helped potentially. And I can tell you for me, and this goes for a lot of young people out there, if you go from, undergrad to law school to applying for jobs, you're one of 100, applying for that same job, and you don't have any sort of life experience or background that can help you sort of differentiate yourself. And I can tell you, every interview I went on, whether it was for a clerkship or when I was in law school or for a job, that's all.
I could see that.
That's all they wanted to talk about.
I can see that.
It didn't matter where I ranked, what school I went to. They wanted to talk about the police experience. And I think like I got kids, and I'd love to see any of them do it, at least for a time, and it's really more about the life experience. It gives you such a rich sort of opportunity to learn, how to deal with people, like Mike was talking about, how to develop friendships and lifelong friendships, and it had a huge impact in my life. That's the thing I'm most proud of.
Right.
Those 4.
Well, and I think what it does too is gives you an insight to how other people live that you had no idea.
Totally true.
North St. Louis is something that, or some of the poverty that these kids that come from, and then when you get into, and I'm not saying you got to feel sorry from it. Everybody.
No, but
has
it's so
a little
true, Tom.
different,
I mean, that is the most. When I went into some of these houses, and saw the roach infestations, and there's no parents around. These kids are at such a disadvantage, and you learn that as while you're on the street, and I'll tell you, I met some really good people on the street.
Absolutely.
I mean, really good people,
Right.
and I value that kind of experience just as much as any of it. So it really gave me kind of a full experience, even though it was a short time, and it just kept giving back all these years.
Right.
It just is up till today. It just keeps giving back.
I'll just say this: you had a good reputation as a policeman. Your brother did too. You guys were known as good policemen, and Mike also had a good reputation after talking to Karen. But for you, what you do representing the police association, that's huge. Because my guys have been involved in shootings, and other units I was in with have been involved in shooting. And knowing that you're there to be their attorney, you have a calming effect on them, and you do a great job. And it's just nice, and it's comforting for them to know that you were doing the same job that they did. So I think that helps. Helps
Well,
a lot.
I appreciate that, and that's why it's such a rewarding thing for me. It's been really just such a privilege last 20 plus years, and a lot to the guys at the association all through these years, whether it was Tom Walsh or Clark, Joe Steiger, Martin Garcia now, who's the president.
I thought you were talking about defending Walsh from a
No,
from one of his cases down in Morgan
Now,
Street.
did you
We'll
ever
leave
work?
that
Did you
alone.
ever work secondary at Morgan Street?
I did.
That gives you a whole lot of credit.
I not only worked there, I started representing policemen involved in incidents there
But
after
you
I
understood.
graduated.
But your working there made you understand.
I actually
Because we were going to talk about, we were going to do a whole show on working at bars.
yeah,
And people
Morgan
don't
Street
understand.
was
So people understand. Tom Walsh, whose name was mentioned, and Tom's 6'6", 260, just looks like somebody you should not mess with. However, you don't believe it until you see it. People go up to him and specifically fuck with him.
Right.
But out of
Why would
all
you
the
do
people they
that?
can fuck with out of the whole bar, they pick a guy in uniform with him that doesn't look like he wants to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And they decide to pick
and he
him.
doesn't want to talk to
He
them.
does, yeah.
Not only does he not look like it,
He does.
does not
He
look
But it's
like it.
No
incredible the people that will go up and specifically pick fights with him.
Can you put the video on the show of when he hip flipped that guy in front of the Enterprise just like a year
we
ago?
did that. Yeah, we did a video to that.
Yeah, about a year.
So, Nazareth.
Some big guy was messing with him. He had enough of him, and he hip slung him.
At
Quick,
60.
quick story
Yeah,
about
he's 60 years old.
So my son went to that concert. He's big. I don't know, Luke Bryan or whatever.
Yeah.
And he comes out to the garage. I'm in the garage, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, check this policeman out. This is on Luke Bryan, whoever the country guy was." This policeman throws this guy on the ground. Like, watch this, because he knows been involved in police stuff. And he starts to play the video, and it's Tom Walsh. And I'm like, it's Tom Walsh. And he does. He just throws the guy
He
off
had
his
enough of
him.
him. That guy wouldn't stop poking him.
No, it was
And
great.
then I hit him up before I put it out because you don't want to put nothing out, And I said, "Hey, can I put this out?" He goes, "I don't care." And I know his daughter Megan loved it. That's my daddy.
Tom Walsh was in a meeting one time at the association, and we were talking about staying off social media and whatever, Facebook or Facebook.
Fake book.
And he goes, "Yeah, I don't do that facial book stuff." He called it facial book. Facial book. So
As he
from
opened up
now
his
on,
flip-
it's always
as he flipped open his flip phone.
Exactly.
But Mike, before we get back to Brian over there with the police stuff, what you with Husch Blackwell now, which is obviously a huge firm in Clayton.
Are you Hush or Blackwell? Sorry, Tom.
His wife is actually Hush. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is that how you got the job?
Yeah.
But anyway, what is there specific laws that you specialize in now?
Yeah, I do commercial litigation, a lot of railroad defense, pharmacy defense, and then just generally anything commercial. And commercial is anything that's not criminal. I wouldn't know what to do with a criminal case.
So you never did any criminal defense?
No. I didn't think anyone would hire me because everyone that walked in my office, I'd be like, "You're guilty." Is that the way it works, Brian?
Well, when you need to pay the bills, you don't really ask that question.
Yeah. He's $250 an hour. You're $450 an hour.
Well,
Yeah.
So yeah, just anything litigation related, people suing companies suing other companies. It's interesting. I like the work, and in a way, it kind of reminds me of the police work in that every day is different. You get to meet a lot of different people. And I guess it's also a little bit like sports. It's fun to win, There's times where like you go to trial and you win at trial. It's like, hey, I did a good job. I won.
Now, when you start out at a company like that, did they work? Were you like the grunt where you just had to do all the background stuff? And
Yeah, and it's a lot of long hours. In fact, I remember after Brian went to law school and I was, talking about going to law school to some of the other police officers. There was a guy named Brett Johnson. I don't know if you
Yeah,
remember
good
Brett.
dude.
he's out
Great
there
guy.
now.
Yeah, yeah. Brett had some friends at the time were lawyers at one of the big firms in St. Louis, and I'd heard that they were making $75,000 a year. And as a police officer, it was like, wow, that's a lot of money. And Brett was like, yeah, but they make you work 80 hours a week, and you'll get divorced, and your ex-wife will take half of it, and you'll be right back down to 35.
Did the math? that math does work out.
Right. But it's good. I enjoy the job. A lot of autonomy. There's sometimes where you gotta, if you're going to trial, Brian knows this. You're going to trial, and you got to work through holidays. You got to work through birthdays. You got to work through anniversaries. But other times you've got the autonomy. Where if you've got a lot of work to do, but if you want to go see your kid's game or dance recital, you can do that. And
Hey, what's
do the work later.
What's autonomy mean?
It's a lawyer word.
But so, Brian, so since you represent policemen, and you didn't represent policemen back when I used to get in trouble.
Yeah,
but
you're one of the few people I don't think I've represented.
But I'm going to give you an incident, and I'm going to give them see what your advice would be.
Guilty.
So it was the Iraq War, and that era. So it's 91ish,
Okay.
and I get a call for a purse recovered in a dumpster. And I get there, and this purse couldn't have been more shitty of a purse. I mean, it had like one thing in it. It was a Blockbuster card for 2835 McNair Road.
It was a Blockbuster card.
And that's it. That's all I got.
He remembers the address because of what
this goes south, dude. But so I go try to give the purse back. The 28. There's nobody there. So I put it in the back seat. I coded a 95. At the present moment, my intention was, I think, I was going to try to go back.
It's always the intention that counts.
I was going to try to go back.
that was his story anyway.
But turns out, at the end of the shift, 3 o'clock, I'm getting off. I'm going to clean my car out, and there's the purse in the back. Well, I also had the paper that I had bought that day to read the paper. And so I was like, all right, I got the paper. I need to throw the paper away, so I'll wrap this purse up in the paper, and I'll throw this thing away. So I do that in the back of the Area 1 station.
Now that sounds like Tom Sawyer.
So that night, the Iran war, the Desert Storm.
Okay.
Desert Storm kicks off. I'm at a bar.
Shock and
We're
awe.
like, yes, all right, but let's kick their ass. Blah blah blah. And so the next morning, we're sitting around, or I'm sleeping. I get a call from Lieutenant George Cloves, our favorite.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, hey, did you get a call for a purse yesterday? I was like, oh, no. Like, yep. He's like, yeah, they're pretty pissed at you. He goes, call down the IAD. And I go, should I call down the IAD or should a lawyer or what? He goes, no, you can call down there. So I called down there and I talked to Harry Hager, and he's like, yeah, this is what happened. And then, so what happens is there's a bomb threat that night to the Area 1 station because the war starts. And due to the bomb threat, they call out the whole bomb unit.
Okay.
And they come out with trucks. They have to empty. They have
Like
to
all the dumpsters?
no, they have to empty the whole Area 1 station. No prisoners, no none. They have to empty the whole. Everybody's got to leave. They emptied out the neighborhood around the station. This is like, this is early in the morning now. They got Sirocco out there. I mean, we verified that he had to go out there in the bomb suit. Then they go get this. I kind of equated to Bill Murray in Caddyshack, where he picked up the baby Ruth in a pool.
Yeah.
Where they went in there and they unraveled the paper, and there's just this little purse.
Did you lose any days over this?
Days. I just want to get your advice. I just want to
It's too late for my advice, just so you know. Like, it's too late.
So what would you have told me?
As is often the case, by the way.
So I got Jim Leonard. Jim Leonard and Jim Towie were partners, and they were flip-flopping, and I call them. We go down there, and they go in first. You know how you go in first, kind of get the vibe.
Yeah.
Hey, what are we going to talk about?
Jim's good at that.
What are we going to talk about here? You know, you guys.
Get the lay of the land.
He comes out, and he goes, boy, they're mad as a motherfucker. He goes, they are mad as hell. And I said, all right, you know. I ended up getting a fucking year's probation out of that.
Oh, shit.
I had to swallow
You
the
needed
sword,
a new lawyer.
I had to swallow the sword. What was I gonna? Hey, hey, Towie. Hey, Towie.
What were you
you're
doing,
out.
Towie?
Hot damn. But that was my big experience at IAD.
Yeah.
So you would have had to. I had to swallow. I had to
Well,
jump
you're
on
going
the
to swallow
sword.
something on that. And there's no doubt about it.
You didn't lose a day, though.
I lost. I got a
Not
year's
salary.
probation.
Yeah, it's a salary.
I had to go on a night watch. That was a whole nother.
Other day, that's
That's a whole nother. That's a whole nother thing of
You
ID.
go on probation and it'll fire your ass while you're on probation. I mean, that's their opportunity. To get
They
rid of
could
you
have, yeah.
At that point.
Yeah, but that'd be a little crazy for that. Fire.
I went
for
to the
anything.
night watch.
For anything.
No, I was
for being him.
He's likable, though.
I think that's
You
what
are
saved
kind
me.
of likable. That's true.
That's what kind of saved me. I think Harry Hager felt bad for me. He's like, this dude didn't mean
Hey,
no harm.
the worst part about it was when Klobes called you.
Right.
You got to answer for the Klobes. And he was probably, obviously, he was cool.
He
I know.
was, he
But
wasn't
still,
mad. He's
Klobes.
like, he goes, yeah, they're mad, dude.
You didn't know he wasn't mad at first, though. He was like, oh, shit.
Because
Klobes
they
is
had
calling.
they had to clear out the. I think they were mad at all the shit they had to do, obviously, with clearing out the station and bomb people running around with tongs. I can see Sirocco out there with tongs, you know, trying to fuck around with the paper. Then it comes out with that purse. Got a purse.
wrapped in paper.
That's just kind of like Bill Murray taking a bite out of it. Taking a bite out of the baby Ruth.
Can I ask a question? Though?
Uh-huh.
Could you have found a trash can maybe somewhere
A little
else
further
outside
away,
the
yeah.
I
station?
forgot all about it. You know me.
That's how lazy he is. He could decide, better throw us around
I
the
mean,
corner.
please, you can't make this
telling
shit up
you-
sometimes.
Telling you, my intention was to try to get it back to the 2835
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I know what your intention was.
So
I got busy.
you were going to go back to the trash can the next day and go up there.
Yeah.
That's what you should have said.
That was your evidence locker.
We don't,
I was
we don't
planning
even
on
want to
getting
get
it.
into how I should store shit. We don't even want to get into how I store shit.
Oh,
as an
man. Chain of
detective.
custody. That's how you do it. Throw it in a trash can for a night.
All right, so now let's get to the nuts and bolts of this thing. Let's talk about some IAD stuff.
Yeah.
And first of all, I want to thank you, and I think JJ already did, for getting back involved with the police after you left the police. And I think it's very important, and like JJ said, is to have that guy that been there and understands, you know, some of the stuff that might not sound right, but you've been there and done that. So I want to thank you for doing that,
appreciate
first of
that.
all.
Yeah.
And then I want to get right into the Kim Gardner era and what it was like and how detrimental that went, how far that set not only law enforcement back, but the city and just talk a little bit about that. A word from our sponsors. Looking for a place to unwind, celebrate, or just pull up a seat with a good company and a fine cigar? Head to Riverman Cigar Company, located at 8984 Watson Road. They're not just a cigar shop. They're a premium lounge where craftsmanship meets chill. From Padron to AJ Fernandez, the humidor is stocked. The sonic humidifier with reverse osmosis keeps every stick tasting top tier. Whether you're new to cigars or a seasoned aficionado, they've got events, education, and a cozy spot to kick back. Call 314-843-3355 or check them out online, rivermancigar.com, where quality matters and the vibe's right.
Now, Tom, where does Dan from Riverman Cigar go when he's selling all those cigars at a high price?
Making all the money.
Yeah, making all the money. Where does he go after that?
He should head on out to Avail Professional Services. It's based in St. Louis, but it has reach across Missouri and Illinois. They're experts in tax planning, payroll, bookkeeping, HR support, and they don't stop until you're under control. Whether you're a solo hustler or a growing firm, Avail brings a high-touch service with real-world results. Visit availproserve.com for your free consultation. Avail Professional Services, when every financial detail matters. Go see Dr. Dussold, otherwise known as Marty Bird. Huge supporter of law enforcement. Go see him. Marty.
The Birdman.
Yep.
Yeah, that was quite a storm. You know, almost the best way to describe it. It was a a 4 or 5 year storm. And, you know, I think it started with the Michael Brown incident back in 14. And, you know, that kind of, she rode the wave into that. And it was a really difficult period. You know, we would go to these association meetings. We have them once a month. And we were just getting kicked in the teeth. I mean, just getting our ass kicked on a number of levels, you know. And, you know, from just dealing with her perspective, you know, I told you this yesterday. In the first 12 years I was representing policemen, I think I had one policeman charged criminally. And in her 4-year stint, I had 8. Actually, I think I had 9 now that I think about it. 9 different policemen charged.
For felonies.
Well, most of them were felonies. And these weren't like, you know, there were a couple of excessive force cases, but most of it was anything from, hey, you know, you put in time you didn't work for, which you have to understand the irony now of that is
Right, with
Kim Gardner was going to school as a nurse while she's
Right.
you know,
She's
right,
people
exactly.
putting in a little extra
Unbelievable,
overtime.
right? Like, you know, but it just kept coming and coming. And poor Martin Garcia, you know, he's the legal chair of the association all those years, and you know, it took a real toll on a lot of people, and especially the policemen. Though people don't understand, you know, when you're charged, your whole world falls apart. You know, you're basically done as a policeman, and most of the time, sometimes you can recover from that, but many times your career, what you've wanted to do all your life, and some of these guys were lifers, lost it all. They lose their families. They, and even though you are ultimately acquitted, which all those people were, your life's changed forever. And it takes a toll on them, and it takes a toll on, honestly, me, like just watching it all, because you just want to fix it.
Or the call. I would imagine some of the calls you get from people that are from the policemen that are in trouble. They're worried. Like a lot of times when we're seeing it from afar, you're like, oh, they'll be okay. They'll be okay. Well, that's seeing it from our view,
Right.
But
Well,
from their view,
but in terms of people thinking it from outside of their little sphere, they're going to be okay because they're not going to be convicted, but you still have to go through the trial,
Right.
the stress of that. But you're fired. You don't have an income. You're blackballed from the community in a lot of ways, and it takes a real those years. I hope we never go back to that place, you know, and you know how, you know, the politics of things, they go back and forth, and there's a big swing, and you just hope that we just never go back there, because those were some really, really difficult times.
You know what's crazy about the whole thing is when she was a prosecutor, I had a couple cases with her, and she was prepared, and she would coach you if you came off the stand. Hey, we can go back on. You did this or did that. But she was good. And both times, I think it was 2 times that she was a prosecutor in one of my trials. And we got convictions on both times. I thought, you know, I liked her. She was a great, good little prosecutor just starting out. Somewhere along the line when she got power and she ran and she got people back, I guess this is how it happens when the community starts giving you money for your campaign and it's getting in your ear. And she did a total 180. And to me, she did a total 180 and ran with it and screwed. And the list came out. And all that. Do we want to get into that part?
well, I wanted Brian to point out of the 8 or 9 people that were charged, how many were convicted?
And none of them were convicted because they were bad cases. Okay. I mean, but it didn't change the fact that it had a terrible impact on their lives, their families' lives. Think about your mom and dad, your kids, all of these things. You know, you go to your parish and there's this stigma
right?
That it's really hard to shake. And then it's not only that, but then, you know, after the criminal, then you've got, typically there's going to be a civil lawsuit filed. And what the city was doing at the time was these guys that were charged criminally, the city kicked them. And they said, you know what, we're not going to defend you. We're not going to indemnify you from any judgment. And so, thankfully, the association picked up some of those guys. And that's why any policeman, if you're not part of a union and you're not part of the association, you are playing with fire. Like,
Right.
you have to have that protection and coverage. And I know it costs you some money out of every check.
It ain't much.
But it's absolutely critical, because you cannot even be in an incident and find that you're on the wrong side of being there.
Well,
But
talk a
anyway,
little bit about just the absurdity of the one kid that was charged with 5 felonies for a macing during one of the biggest riots we've had downtown.
So during the Stockley protests, of course, that went on for several weeks. There was a big protest down at Busch Stadium, and they came out of Busch Stadium. That's when they unveiled the big flag or whatever they had down there. Sheets put together, maybe. But anyway, they came out and they did their little march. And the frustrating part is, they had a whole detail of policemen.
They actually, I was in narcotics at the time, but we were there.
Yeah.
And those are my officers at the time.
And so your guys blocked off the street for these people, right? And they, all the traffic stopped, and they're going down Broadway, and, well, like, what else can you do? I mean, it's, so.
Busch Stadium was filled with people going to the ball game.
Right. And there's families coming out. And anyway, so at some point, the policemen tried to stop a couple of protesters who were lagging behind the big group, who they kept walking down Broadway. This is Broadway and Walnut. And they got mad because they were behind the group, and they were stopped. And so there was an arrest made, and then all these protesters who had kept going south on Broadway came back, and now you've got, I think they're, in looking at all the camera footage, I think you had 100 people or more coming back, and they kept coming back towards the policemen, and there was 8 policemen there maybe, and they kept telling him to get back. And so eventually one of the policemen, my client, he ends up taking his fogger spray, which is designed for
just
this
that.
purpose, right? So he doesn't take out his baton or anything else, and he sprays the protesters. Right after, by the way, there's a person in the crowd that says, "Shoot these motherfuckers down." Like, okay. And you can see him actually on tape. He turns his head to where that came from, and he sprays him. Well, Kim Gardner decides that she's going to charge this guy with felonies. Literally, felonies for assault, which is just so
Which is
outrageous.
equivalent to shooting somebody with a gun.
Right.
Just so everybody
it's
knows.
so outrageous. So anyway, and of course, with that, when you're charged with a felony, it's an automatic termination. So he goes through that whole process. We have a trial, and thank God for the city bench. The judges there are just so important. They're basically the backstop of a city going into complete anarchy, at least at that time. I mean, literally. And of course, we didn't try the case to a jury, and the judge acquitted him. But what that kicked off then was 5 or 6 more years of litigation that the city wasn't covering, and we went all the way up through federal court, 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. The cases got dismissed, and then they filed in state court. And I'm still, this whole time, fighting with the city to try to get them to step up to the plate and do what they should have done in the beginning. And ultimately, just last month, actually, the cases finally got resolved right before trial.
There's no more cases. They're all gone.
They're all gone. But he had to deal with, it's not only that, but he's got to deal with post. Whenever you're charged with a felony, they suspend your
The
license.
post is a just for those who
Right.
don't know, it's a certification process for all policemen. And if you
It's
don't have
the state agency who oversees peace officer licenses. And so, he this poor guy, lived through hell for a long, long period. And he's doing really well now. But, those are some really dark days for him.
Hey, Brian, It's John.
Hey, John.
How many processes did she put into that weren't there before to go after police officers when she got into office?
Well, it wasn't. They had a unit that focused on that, and that's not uncommon, right? Prosecutors do that. They put together these separate units, public integrity units, things like that, so that they're kind of walled off from other prosecutors who rely on policemen as witnesses. And so that wasn't so different. But the big difference that occurred under her watch is she started a list.
Hoping we get to that.
Yeah. And in federal court, there's something called a Brady list. And the Brady list, the way you land on a Brady list typically is that you have to be found by a court of law to have lied under oath. And that makes sense, right? I mean, if you've got a policeman who's testifying in criminal trials and a judge has determined that that person's lied under oath, then it makes sense that the defense should have that. And those policemen oftentimes are not allowed to testify. And typically that's, termination of a career.
Well, they wouldn't take any of their new cases.
Right.
They can make an arrest and didn't go anywhere.
Right.
They refused all the
So
cases.
you're kind of stuck unless you're in an administrative role. And Kim Gardner's case, though, but there's a procedure for that, and it's all outlined in federal bureau and U.S. Attorney's Office. They have ways you get on it. There's certain things that happen, and it makes sense. And there's a process involved, and you can challenge it. But what she did, and this was kind of part of the movement that bigger cities were kind of doing at that time, is she made her own list. And it was a secret list, and the only way you found out if you were on it is if they said, you can't come down here anymore to the warrant office or you can't testify. And so we were getting more and more calls on this, and more people were landing on the list, but they wouldn't tell us why. It wasn't the situation I just described,
Right.
where they were found to have lied to a tribunal. It was more just a situation where, hey, we didn't like what you said or we didn't like what you were alleged to have done in an internal investigation, and there was no process for challenging that.
And no criteria for getting on the list.
No. And so at one point, I think we had 80 or more policemen on this list, and no one knew why. And we couldn't, we had no access to the office. We had no access to people in the office to try to explain to us, okay, what are the problems with each individual policeman? And how that affects two people is that, if you make an arrest and you're on the list, now your partner has to go down and apply. And if your partner didn't witness what you did, the case is, you don't have a case, right? And then the other thing that was happening is if you wanted to be promoted or you wanted to move maybe to a federal job, you
Right.
couldn't. And so there were just a number of different problems with it. And thankfully, that has been resolved. And, Gabe Gore's just been doing a really good job. He's brought back a lot of good prosecutors, and I think the office is really moving in the right
It is good.
direction.
That's
And I would say the same thing about the county. Melissa Smith is doing a great job. And it all seems to be kind of normalizing from what we experienced before. Yeah.
And I don't want everybody to get this wrong. We're not saying that policemen don't mess up at times.
Right.
We're just saying that at times it's very, very hard for us to watch at times, and I want Brian to get into this, is some of the narratives that get brought out against policemen that have been in trouble and how they get to run with it and how detrimental that can be to trying to defend a case. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I just want to touch on one thing you just said. And, people are like, well, why do you defend police? They're the problem. The people you defend are the problem. Well, what I want and what the union wants and why, those guys are so important is we want a fair process, right? And that's all we want. And, one of the things that goes into that is having a set of rules in place. A lot of people don't understand that policemen are compelled; they have to give statements. So this is not a situation where you can go into internal affairs and say, "I'm asserting the fifth."
Right.
because it doesn't work that way. And so because of that, we just want a fair process. We want, guys to have a chance to, and gals to have a chance to call a lawyer and know what they're charged with and things like that. And so that's our main goal, especially as a union and the Missouri State FOP is the same way. We just want a fair process. And, if you really screw up, you're going to pay for that. If you throw a purse in a trash can, you know what? You're going to pay for that. And that's just the way it goes.
Damn.
Hey, let me ask you, how is the back then we didn't have body cameras.
Right.
How much has that helped you as an attorney now that there are? Because people still in the street they're starting to figure it out now.
Yeah.
That sorry, yeah, so that they're figuring out that we have body cameras because most of them don't. We didn't know, and there's still some are shocked. That's how dumb that some of them are out in the street. And I'm not saying this person was dumb, but today lady comes up to me and said, starts going off, about our pursuit, and she's accusing my guys of. I go, it's all on body camera, all on in-car camera. And she goes, oh, and she walked away because she wanted to make a street complaint to me because I'm a lieutenant. And I go, well, I'm going to look at the body camera, and I already heard of what the body camera looks like. I think they were fine. And she's like, oh, okay, and walked away. And she ended up being very, very nice. But now that they know what these body cameras, I think everybody didn't want them at first. I think they've been a godsend for policemen.
I would agree. First of all, what a huge sea change. Think about, and I think about if you had to wear a camera 8 hours a day.
Oh, it would suck.
I just wish the public would kind of understand that that's asking a lot. But I understand. We understand the purpose of it, and I'll say this: on critical incidents, they have been fabulous. Right. I mean, you would not believe what happens on the street. Like, policeman pulls a car over and he gets out to do a normal traffic stop, and some guy gets out and just starts shooting. I mean, it's all there to see, and because you couldn't really. Who would do that?
Right.
I mean, you almost couldn't believe what actually happened.
If that was just written, you'd be like, that's bullshit. The policeman lied.
That is bullshit, and there's no way that happened. Why would he do that? It happens. And I think on the critical incident side, it's been, I'm really happy that we now have these things. And even when it comes to civil complaints from citizens about the way an officer treated somebody. It's been good in that sense too. Where it gets a little troublesome to me is when body cams were allegedly never supposed to be an instrument of discipline.
Right.
And but one of the big violations that we see a lot of is, hey, your body cam, you get a complaint by a citizen, and they determine that you didn't do anything wrong but your body cam wasn't on, or it wasn't charged, and guys are taking days for that. And I get it,
well, we're so short, and guys do overtime. So they do 8 hours, and they'll stick around to another 4, and those things aren't meant for that long. And so all of a sudden now they get jammed up because it didn't videotape the entire
There's other
thing.
times they don't turn it on when they should have. I mean, and that happens too. And so I understand the need to sort of enforce that, but that's the downside of the body cam. I think the body cam has been great for a lot of purposes, but the downside is that's what we're seeing a lot of discipline on currently.
I want to go back to the narratives that get brought out on these court cases sometimes, and we're still dealing with one of the biggest myths of all time, which was the hands up, don't shoot.
Yeah,
that's a complete myth. Whatever I'm not going to change anybody's mind on it or anything, but you weren't involved in that. But you have chased down some narratives that are hard to defend because they get out first.
Yeah. So the Michael Brown case really changed the way we approached shootings. From a public relations perspective. And before that shooting, we just stayed out of the media. We just said no comment, ongoing investigation. But we realized that after Michael Brown, that they were creating their own narratives, and you had to punch back a little bit in the sense that you had to get your story out there. And it can be very frustrating doing that because you might give a 20-minute interview with a reporter and they put in 5 words that don't even make sense of the interview. And so we definitely made a concerted effort to try to combat that, but it's very difficult. Once the narrative's out there, I'll tell you, Jason Stockley was involved in a shooting, great policeman. He was involved in a shooting right after about a month after Michael Brown down in the Shaw neighborhood.
You're talking about Flannery.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Flannery.
Yeah. So he was down there working secondary and came across a kid with a gun, and the kid actually got a couple of rounds off at him. He's really lucky, and ends up shooting him. Well, the narrative that came out, as ridiculous as it sounds, is he was holding a ham sandwich.
I remember it good.
Yeah, and
Six-shot ham sandwich.
Right. Even though the forensic evidence, you've got shell casings and things around the body, and so we really put more of an emphasis at that point on trying to get our story out. But it was very difficult, even when you would give an interview, and you had to develop a relationship with reporters at that point, people you could trust and who you couldn't, and that was a process to figure that out too. So
that became the second rallying point. They'd start out in Ferguson, and then they get tired of doing Ferguson stuff, and then they get on social media, and they've responded to the Shaw neighborhood.
Go do a little hands up, don't shoot, ham sandwich.
Yeah, and they would go down to Shaw neighborhood, and they'd march on Vanderbilt or Manchester, whatever, and get down to the Quick Trip. I remember them going there. That was a big, but we did a way better job getting on top of that one. And I think as a whole, we're really getting good at telling our story and getting it out there. And if you go on the news at night at the scene and tell your story, they don't cut that out. They shouldn't cut that out.
Yeah.
So that's one good thing. And I think our department's doing real good about getting on top of that now. And I think the whole country is.
I think one other thing, and then we'll start telling some little stories. But one thing I wanted you to cover was the Police Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
And how that came about, and what's entailed in there, and how that all came about.
So the city took control of the department back in 2012. We had Rule 7, which is, in the city anyway, it's kind of the gospel of how discipline works. Had all the rules laid out. It was a good system. And we also had a collective bargaining agreement at that time that had procedures for discipline in it as well. And the city at that time, it was under Mayor Slay, and kind of my understanding is that we knew city control was going to happen, but kind of the agreement that we struck on it was, you guys leave our CBA in place, and we'll step aside, even though we knew it was probably going to happen. And so for the first couple of years that our collective bargaining agreement stayed in place, and so did Rule 7, but then they started chipping away at that, and we got to a point during the Kim Gardner years that we had no protections left. We did not really have much of a set of rules in place that were fair, that just gave due process to policemen. And at the time, the association was sending attorneys out to Las Vegas every year, which was fun. But it was a group of lawyers from all over the country. And you start to develop relationships with people, and I'd been talking to folks about kind of what was going on in our area. And one of the guys, I don't remember where he was from, but he said, "Have you ever looked into these police officer Bill of Rights?" And I said, "No, I hadn't heard about it." And so I came home from the conference and started looking, and there were actually 11 or 12 different states that had these Bill of Rights. And it was basically a set of rules that applied to internal investigations that gave due process. And since they were stripping all of this away, we started talking about that internally. And of course, to do that is a huge lift. Getting any legislation passed at the state level it's a big lift. And it took us, we filed a couple of bills over the years, I think 17, 18, maybe even 19, and we just kept kind of farming that ground, right? I mean, fertilizing it and developing relationships. And eventually we got it passed in 2021. And it was really kind of a sea change for not just our agency, but agencies all around the state, because it's a statewide law. And now everybody's got the same set of rules.
Right. And what the Bill of Rights does is it's a rules, like you said before, it's about discipline and everything else.
Basic stuff like, they have to give you notice about what you're coming down for. They have to give you, so much time to get an attorney. One of the things that was happening in our agency is that they were putting people in timeout, right, administrative duty or whatever, and they were restricting overtime and secondary. Well, everybody knows, anybody that's involved in this, overtime and secondary is your lifeblood for most policemen. Right. I mean, you just don't make enough money in your salary, especially in the city. And what they would do is they would put people on administrative duty knowing they probably can't make a case, but leave them there for a year
Hang
and a
them
half.
out to dry.
And they're bleeding them. They were bleeding them. And so one of the things that we did in the Bill of Rights, probably the most impactful thing, is we put a 90-day term on an investigation. So now, they can put them on administrative duty, but they've got 90 days to complete the investigation.
That's huge.
And so but what an effort by a lot of people. And I got to tell you, Governor Kehoe has been, such an instrumental part, and he's such a huge backer of law enforcement. And without his help, and at that time he was lieutenant governor, without his help on that particular piece of legislation, it never happens. And Jay Schroeder, magnificent job, and our lobbyist down there, Mark Bruns, too. So total team effort on that. It was probably, it's a really proud thing to be a part of.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That because it means so much to all of us.
So you said the governor's going to come on the podcast?
Well,
We're trying to get him on.
ask Tommy can do
Well,
it.
I think Chuck's on it.
Oh, okay.
Chuck's on it. He's the governor, goddamn. He's been driving.
He's
them
the real
people
mayor.
around.
He's the real mayor of St.
He's
Louis.
been driving them guys around for a minute.
He knows everybody.
So, Mike, I'm gonna. We kind of ignored you there for a minute.
That's all right.
We made it the Brian show there for a hot
Oh,
minute.
it was fascinating.
But I was going to ask you, as a lawyer at Husch Blackwell, when all this stuff's going on, they know you're a cop, they know you're a lawyer now. Are they always in your office going, "Hey, what do you hear about this? What do you think about this? What do you do about that?"
A lot of people were, and it was such an interesting time. I would want to talk to people. These are issues that I care about. And it's so interesting. So many people, our brains categorize and classify. And it's so easy for people to hear a narrative and to just accept it whole cloth. And it's so much more nuanced than that. The whole defund the police thing, I was like, where's that coming from? I mean, they don't know how difficult a job it is. They don't know all the things that police officers do that make the world safer for them, that make the city safer for everybody. I mean, I would say, police officers, they hear gunfire and they're running towards it. Everyone else is ducking or running away. That's for you guys. I know police officers that have run into burning buildings to save people. Brian did that. And these people don't know, they don't understand that, they don't appreciate it, they don't know how you have to do the job, and to make sure you go home at the end of the day. And I would just, like I said earlier, we don't shoot guns out of people's hands. You don't shoot their kneecaps. You shoot when your life is in danger, and we're taught to shoot center mass to stop the threat.
Right.
And people don't understand that. And
You think it's getting better? They're definitely getting away from defund the police. It still
Good.
pops up here and there, but I think for the most part, they're getting smart enough to know that's not the right answer.
Right.
But not all of them. And I won't get into
Well, it's just
Why not?
I kind of feel like I needed to talk to people just to present another side of it, because you can't believe everything that you see on the news. You got to get your news from multiple sources, because there's these narratives out there, and it's important to talk to people, and it's important to get to know police officers. I mean, it makes a big difference if for instance, if you've got a family member or a friend who's a police officer and you know what they do, day in and day out what they do to help people. It frames it a little differently than when you just see some story on the news.
And we try to get as much positive stuff out as we can. We could have a podcast for 2 hours a day, every day, and not get out all the great shit that policemen do throughout the state and you just can't.
Right.
Because there's, and there's all those little cases, those little, whether it's chasing little robbery suspects, and it doesn't end up in the news because you chase them down, you tackle them, nothing happens, doesn't end up in the news. It's not newsworthy for the Channel 5 news. It's not newsworthy because the policeman didn't screw up.
Right.
Now let the policeman screw up. That little robbery arrest is
That'll get you clicks.
right. Yes, but and it's just hard to get all the great stuff that policemen do out there. It's just hard. But I will say
No,
this.
I was going to say, it's not all, I mean, there are times when people do screw up, and the one thing I always talk about is, and they are humans. We're not robots. You're going to screw up. And I know I did plenty of times, and that's just the way, that's the nature of it, And not only are you going to screw up, but they're under such a microscope. That's the thing. Like, all of us are screwing up at our jobs every day, but it's not newsworthy because nobody cares.
We make a split. You make a split-second decision, and then you get analyzed over and over from every angle.
Right.
Well, you got JJ going viral on the mega thing, on the mega hat. All he was trying to do is get this game's almost over. Let's get out of here, people. Next thing you know, you got a couple billion views or something.
Hey, I became friends with him.
I like it. Well,
I didn't know you had any friends.
He's my only friend.
I think we've gone a little bit. We want to have you guys back. We want to have you guys back on, but we are a little long now.
Yeah. I'm surprised we
Thank
made
you
it this
guys
long.
thank you guys for coming. Go ahead, Mike.
Can I make a plug real quick?
I forgot about
The whole reason we're here. by the way.
I came here.
Cut it, John. No, but tell us about this fundraiser we got coming up with the Backstoppers.
Backstoppers. We're doing a sporting clay shooting fundraiser for the Backstoppers out at St. Louis Skeet and Trap, which is down by Six Flags. You can go to our website, Brian Scott, my brother John, Jason Heldenbrand. We formed a nonprofit to benefit the Backstoppers. We've got a website, it's honoringheroesinc.com. If anyone's interested in doing some clay shooting or wants to donate or sponsor, click on it, and we'd love the support.
All right. Is it like an event?
Yeah,
Like
so-
we're having barbecue or anything?
Yep. There'll be food. There'll be
That's all he cares about.
beverages.
I'll come out there. I'll come out there for the barbecue and beer. I ain't shooting no
Hey, we
skeet.
can't
Hey,
put
just
a
to all
shotgun
policemen
in.
out
I
there,
ain't
it's
shooting
not
no
free,
skeet.
just so you know.
It's
Yeah,
fun.
no skeet.
I actually went out. I've shot out there before.
Oh,
I
yeah,
did it.
yeah, it's
I did
great.
a
You shoot
function.
skeet?
I did this time. And I tell you what, at the end of that, I don't know how many. It's like you go from station to station, like a call.
Yeah.
And by the end of the day, I ain't gonna lie, my shoulder was sore.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I will
You don't
say in the
cheat much, it
academy,
will be.
we shot skeet in the academy,
So do we.
and I was surprisingly good.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Let's do a team.
Right.
There you go.
There you go.
John and Danny.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know about all that. No,
We gotta do it early in the morning so no one's drunk,
I'll
but-
do that.
Yeah, don't
this
drink
shit-
until after.
Right.
You
right.
can
Yeah.
drink
Out
until
there.
after.
We'll go out
After
there.
you'll be fine.
What about gummies? You suggest those?
Yeah,
After, not
After.
before.
You know, like gummy bears? Is that what you're talking about?
Not gummy bears, something like that. But what day is this?
June 26th,
Okay.
8 a.m., St. Louis Skeet and Trap out in Pacific.
One more time with the website.
honoringheroesinc.com.
All right. Then
He has
we'll
a
put that on the
fancy,
screen.
what do you call it, code?
Fancy coat.
Yeah, like you can take a picture of it. What is it?
Oh, yeah. So there is, and also there's that website will take you to the ticketing registration website, which is a platform called One Cause. We've got a QRL code that actually your nephew made for us.
Good old Jackie boy.
I didn't even know how to spell QRL code before this or what it was, but you take a picture of it with your phone and it takes you to the website.
There you go.
What made you come up with this idea? Is this the first anniversary, or
Yeah. First one.
First annual. So Scott and Brian invited me. We do some charity shoots. One
you guys are good.
One we do every fall, Joshua Chamberlain Society. Friend of mine from law school started that, Randy Soriano. It's a great organization.
It really is.
So yeah, we try to go every October.
Explain what that is.
Well, so Randy Soriano was in the Marine Corps, I believe a captain. And when we both graduated from WashU Law, and when he got out, he's working for, I call it Brian Cave. I think they've merged and there's a different name now. But Randy and some of his friends started this great organization called the Joshua Chamberlain Society, where they adopt wounded veterans and they bring those veterans into the fold as part of a group. And those wounded veterans, it's not just helping them, they then are part of the team, and they then bring in other veterans and they help those veterans. And they do a lot of different things to raise funds to help these folks. It gave so much. And so it's great. So we do that shoot, and then Brian and Scott invited me to shoot down at St. Louis Skeet and Trap for the Paul Simon fundraiser.
That's a police family.
Yeah.
I swear,
Yeah.
I
Simon's
shot.
family.
I went to there one time. Tony Mariani brought me to that one.
Yeah.
I was so bad they never asked me back.
We're terrible as well.
I
He's
think-
good.
I
He
do
can
think
shoot.
we are
He
getting a
can-
team
he
in.
can- He can shoot.
Count
He
us
can
in.
shoot. Yeah,
We're in.
He can shoot. Of
But we
John,
were
are
there.
you good, Skeet?
course, John's good.
I'll practice.
We were down there. Sam Simon was there
Yeah.
with Larry O'Toole, the executive director of the Backstoppers.
Yep.
And we started talking about, everyone loves the Backstoppers. And Larry was saying how they've got, more families that they're supporting now. In fact, I just saw that they've, added that Moline Acres police officer.
As well as the Greg
Triplett.
Yeah. They
Greg
did?
Triplett.
Right.
That took him in. So that's
So they,
Great organization.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone that's watching this knows about it, but if you don't, it's when there's when a first responder, not just a police officer, first responder, firefighter, EMT, when they're killed in the line of duty or catastrophically injured, they step in and they immediately, pay off mortgages, they take care of bills, they just do great things. And to me, that sense of community, which is what I miss most about, my jobs as police officers, the sense of community, how when you needed something, people came running.
It's touching at times.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
When things happen that are catastrophic, and watching the community back us,
Right.
is some of the most tingling feeling that you can get as a law enforcement officer when you're in these. And we've talked about it before, these funeral processions, unfortunately, or you go and you go to a fundraiser and you see people that aren't policemen, and they've got several tables filled up. That means so much to us that people just don't understand how much that we appreciate that, and we can't tell anybody. You can't go to table and say we really appreciate all you do, but I'll say it right now. We really appreciate all the people that do anything they can, because there's so many organizations out there that are great organizations, and obviously not everybody has the wherewithal to donate to all that, but sometimes just comments and the nods of the head when these policemen are in sandwich places or wherever they're at, and you just give them a little nod, and that goes a long way. So I'm glad you guys could come by.
Yeah, it's been
Really
great.
appreciate
Yeah.
it. And
I'm proud of you knuckleheads. I mean, you guys, I can't believe you actually have like a studio and shit.
Right.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
This is like, wow. Yeah.
We're getting
I
there,
never
brother.
would have imagined.
We're getting there.
Be careful. I got some stuff on you guys I didn't bring up yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't talk to Karen Menendez anymore, please.
Right.
You might want to cut this off now.
Yeah, let's.
Well, we really appreciate it. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
You hurt your ears though?